Okay, so I've been working on a video the past couple of days that is not a Mythbusters video, and I mean that's not going very well. Literally every attempt that I've had trying to record this video, something always goes wrong, and I don't want to miss an upload for you guys. So today we're doing another episode of the Fortnite Mythbusters. Last episode, you guys smashed the like goal of 10,000 likes in like literally 2 hours, which I have no clue how that happened. So today I'm gonna set a like goal of 10,001 likes. Just gonna go a little bit higher to see if we could even do it again. Anyways, if you do have a myth you would like me to test in the next or future episodes, go drop it down in the comments down below, and while you're down there, let me know your favorite place you've ever landed in Fortnite. It could be anywhere from season 0 all the way up till now. Personally, I miss Moisty Mire and the OG prison. That used to be like my place to land. Anyways guys, let's begin today's episode. Jumping into the first myth is, what happens when you launch a player out of a cannon through a tunnel full of traps? Will he die? Doing this myth in game wasn't very difficult. All what I had to do is spawn in a cannon, of course, and then I made a pretty short tunnel that is just full of spike traps. From there, I changed teams, then I got into the cannon itself and launched my player out of it. Surprisingly, the spike traps do have a delay from when you do land on top of them and for when the spikes actually do get deployed, and with this delay, your player is traveling so fast from the cannon that the spike trap won't do any damage to him at all. I thought this was pretty interesting, but it does make sense. Like if you're on a hoverboard and you're going fast enough through a tunnel of spike traps, it still won't deal any damage to you. So I guess if you are very unlucky and you do land on a spike trap or something, it might do some damage to you. Or if you're just going through it slow enough, then of course it will have a chance of deploying and killing you. The next myth is, what happens when you go into a rift while inside of a baller, or also known as a hamster ball? Doing this myth in game was actually fairly simple. I just spawned myself in a hamster ball and then some extra rift goes, which I dropped for my second account to actually create the rift in the creative server. From there, my second account ran over, grabbed the rifts, and he actually used the rift while I then drove the hamster ball straight into it. And surprisingly, the hamster ball does teleport into the sky, but sadly you just drop straight down. I'm sure if there is a structure up all the way up to the sky limit, you could just grapple straight onto it, but you don't deploy any glider, nothing special. You might get a few feet, but nothing too crazy. Now the next myth is actually pretty similar to the last myth, but it of course was a pretty highly requested one. This myth is, what happens if you are grappling onto a player while you're inside of a hamster ball or a baller and he uses a rift to go? In game, when I tested this out, I was expecting for my player who was grappling onto my second account to kind of fly straight into the skies since he does use the portal rift, but surprisingly, even if my player is nowhere near the other person using the portal rift, he will actually teleport up into the sky in the same location as if he just went through the rift as regular. I thought this was pretty interesting, and a couple episodes back we did try this exact same myth out, but instead of a baller, we tried it out with one of the grappler guns, and it was an entirely different outcome. Overall though, I guess you could get super lucky in a public match and somehow teleport up into the sky if you do somehow grapple a player who is using a rift to go. Jumping into the next myth is, are you able to redeploy your glider while you are boogie bombed? Testing this out in game was fairly simple. I was able to boogie bomb my own player, but I wanted to see what happens if even an enemy boogie bombed you. Maybe the outcome would be different. Sadly, when I did test this out in game, if you are boogie bombed and you are in the dancing motion throughout the entire time you are falling, you are unable to redeploy your glider at any time. So if you do fall from a high enough height, you will end up falling to your death. In creative mode, I didn't have any fall damage on, but if you do try this in a regular game or even playgrounds, you will end up falling to your death, so be careful. Now this next myth has literally got thousands of likes on multiple people's comments. This myth is, what happens if you get clingered and then you jump into a hamster ball? Now in the previous episode of the Fortnite Mythbusters, we did test this out, but instead of it actually attaching to my player, we threw a regular clinger onto the hamster ball to see if it will damage my player itself. In the previous episode when we did test this out, it did not damage the player, it only damaged the hamster ball. So also does the same thing happen if the player is connected with a clinger. In game, when I did test this out, I threw some clingers onto my main account and then I jumped into the hamster ball to see if it will do any damage to my player instead of the ball itself. Well, you could clearly see that the clinger is stuck to my player rather than the outside of the ball. Surprisingly, the clinger still does damage to the ball itself, not the player at all. I then tested this out with the hamster ball at a pretty low HPs to see if it will knock off at least some sort of the damage it will do to my player, but surprisingly it does full damage to my player and even more to the hamster ball. So in a regular game, if this ever happens to you, I suggest jumping into a hamster ball if it is at a pretty reasonable HP, otherwise it possibly could be pointless. Jumping into the next myth is what happens when an AI or a bot from the creative presets lands on top of a launch pad. Before the most recent update, I've been trying to do this for the longest time and I never could figure out a way to move the AI out of its spawn platform. But luckily with this brand new flintlock pistol, I am able to push myself as well as the AI off of the platform and have them land on top of a launch pad. When I was testing this out in game, I set up a little platform with an AI up maybe like 2 or 3 blocks high, as well as one a little bit lower so I could get more of a variety in how far they actually launch. From there beyond it, I put a couple launch pads to upper the chances of it landing on a launch pad, and then I started up the match. It took a couple tries, but when I was actually able to move the AI off of its platform and it did land on top of a launch pad, sadly nothing really happened. I was expecting the physics to be somewhat like a regular player, since I mean of course it is another player just in a bot form, it's a computer controlling it, so I was hoping that the AI would launch into the air and maybe redeploy a glider and just fall back down, but sadly he's similar to like a llama. He just lands on the launch pad and continues shooting at literally nothing. Anyways, I thought this was a pretty interesting myth, definitely something that I didn't know, and I don't really think you'd ever use this in a regular game, mainly because AIs aren't in regular public matches. Now this next myth has also been requested by a whole ton of people. This myth is what happens when you try to grapple a rocket shot from a rocket launcher while you're inside of a baller or a hamster ball. This myth was insanely difficult to do and I tried it for a little while, but sadly I was unable to successfully grapple onto the rocket itself. Usually with a regular grapple gun, you could shoot a rocket from your RPG and then pull out the grappler real quick and you could actually pull yourself towards the rocket, but this is way different with the baller. When I tried this in game, I shot a rocket out from my RPG and then I got in my baller very quickly, and as you could see for a slight second there is a hitbox that you could connect your grapple onto the rocket and possibly pull yourself up, but whenever I click at that exact moment, it never catches up to the rocket. The rocket is usually too far away and you cannot grapple onto it. Now theoretically speaking, you are able to grapple onto the rocket since it does have a hitbox. You will just have to lead your grapple a little bit in front of the rocket if it is coming towards you. That way with the time it takes for the rope with the grappler to extend out to the rocket, it will meet at the exact same time. Just this is a very difficult thing to do, and I highly doubt that it will probably most likely not happen in game. I tested this out for a good 20-25 minutes and sadly I was never able to do it by myself. If you guys ever do successfully do this though, send me a clip on Twitter, I'd love to see it. The next myth is, can you throw a clinger or a C4 onto a player's balloons? Now I first tested this out with the clingers, and surprisingly when I did throw the clinger onto my second account's balloons, it was able to stake onto the balloons and it still did the exact same amount of damage as if it was attached to the player. Now I did try this out with the C4 as well, and sadly with the C4 not being in the game any longer, you could still take note of this if it does ever get brought back in. Sadly unable like before, you were able to stick C4 onto a player. Now you're unable to do that, but that does not change for the balloons. If you do stick a C4 onto a balloon, you could easily detach the balloon, have it rise up into the air, and the C4s will stick onto it and blow up with the balloon in the sky. This will make for some pretty awesome kills if C4s ever do get brought back. Stick some C4s onto a balloon, go underneath the build fight, have a balloon float up, and it'll be an explosive surprise up in the sky. Anyways guys, that's gonna wrap it up for today's episode of the Fortnite Mythbusters. I hope you have enjoyed. If you have, make sure to leave a like and also subscribe if you are new to the channel. Can we reach our like goal of 10,001 likes? That would be insane. And if you guys have made it this far in the video, leave a quick comment down below saying C4. That way I could recognize all of you awesome viewers who watched all the way till the end. Anyways, I'll see you guys next time.